55 games in, the Timberwolves have held their opponents to just 109 points every 100 possessions. No other team is under 111, and the league's average is over 116. They're about 7 points above the mark. Throughout all of NBA history, only 12 other teams have ever finished a season with that much separation, and of those, only 7 were in the 21st century. We're talking about one of the best defensive units ever, with the personnel and versatility to cause problems for anyone who stands in their way. For starters, they've got options at the point of attack. Jaden McDaniels is their go-to, and he's one of the best wing defenders in the league. At 6'9" with a near 7-foot wingspan, he's got the size of a power forward or small ball 5. Yet, he moves laterally like a small guard. So you get this nightmare of a matchup, with a rare combination of length and agility that allows him to just smother any ball handler. Next to him, you've also got Anthony Edwards. Like McDaniels, we're talking about some incredible lateral quickness with great length. And when he locks in, he'll play the game's best isolation players one-on-one with success. Where I think he has a clear edge on Jaden though, is the strength aspect. Some perimeter players like to create separation with the use of contact, and he's a brick wall, meaning he can even guard up a couple positions when needed. Those two can match up with most perimeter players, and rounding out their first line of defense is Mike Conley. He's only 6 foot, so obviously he won't match up with bigger wings like the other two, but against guards he's still very effective. He moves his feet well, is a lot sturdier than he looks, and has sharp hands. So on a play like this, where Gobert has to defend some off-ball action, and Mike gets attacked in isolation, he can more than hold his own. If they want to get even more defense on the floor, coming off the bench they've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You guessed it, he's quick laterally with great size and length. He spends most of his time on the perimeter, but something I love about him is how switchable he can be. If the team needs him to defend 3s or 4s, or he finds himself cross-matched with someone much bigger, he'll offer more resistance than the average wing. When needed, you can even throw Kyle Anderson out there. He's not nearly as quick as the other 4, but with a staggering 7'3" wingspan, good luck getting around him or getting shots over him. Minnesota's most recent matchup with the Magic really highlights the amount of defensive weapons they have. More specifically, the amount of guys they could throw at Paolo Banchero. Of course, McDaniels was the primary, but Edwards also spent some time on him and made it abundantly clear that he was no mismatch. Because they can both guard him, whenever one was screened by the other's man, they'd just switch. Here you see that strength I was talking about, not letting Paolo back him down before smothering a tough mid-range jumper. When the bench unit was in, they could throw size at Paolo with the height and length of Kyle Anderson, or they could meet him with more agility by putting Alexander Walker on him. Each one of these guys did a very effective job of slowing down the All-Star. That wing versatility unlocks a ton of switching for this defense. Like I said earlier, McDaniels and Edwards are more than comfortable switching just about every action between the two, which helps prevent advantages. It doesn't matter who the matchup is, because it's rare for either to be a mismatch in any situation. This time it's Giannis, and he never gets the ball because Ant's jumping the entry pass. Who can be a mismatch though is Mike Conley. Here he finds himself switched onto Durant, and to avoid it, you're going to see Gobert call for another switch, so that he can instead defend KD in isolation. Not sure you could ask for a better contest on the face-up midi. For the most part, they do their best to protect Mike from these switches. In their first matchup with the Celtics, Tatum was relentlessly hunting for him, and you're going to see him jump out in a show and recover, allowing McDaniels to get back in front of the ball without an advantage for Boston to attack. Later in the game, they actually tried to flip these actions, with Tatum setting the screen on Conley to get the switch. So it's McDaniels who shows to the ball before recovering, and with Rudy rotating down to the rim, Mike's able to get back in the play. Now, when it's a guard, like Dinwiddie, they're comfortable giving up the switch, and the key here is that they always have a body to put in front of potential attackers. This play starts with a switch between Ant and Jaden, then Trey's gonna turn that straight into a pick and roll with his big. Look at McDaniels though. He aggressively helps at the nail to shut off a potential drive before recovering to his man on the perimeter for a solid contest. And it's incredibly important that all of these wings are still valuable away from the ball. Watch Conley on this one. Instead of following his man to the weak side, he hangs around the nail. Then when Podziemski turns the corner, he's instantly met by some aggressive hands. Their roster is filled with athletic phenoms who can consistently get away with over-helping. McDaniels has a long recovery and gets beat on a closeout, only to chase a drive and swat away a floater before doing it again on the second chance opportunity. It feels like they have 3 or 4 rim protectors on the floor at all times. Gobert's out on the perimeter while Monk starts his drive, so who other than your starting shooting guard to rotate down and perfectly time up a huge rejection? Ant's unique athletic tools allow him to cover ground in ways that guards shouldn't be able to do. Not only can he turn his body and throw all of his momentum into a closeout, but just as quickly as he accelerates, he can come to a stop and contain an attack, once again showcasing that isolation defense. When you have multiple great closeout defenders, that enables the team to rotate and scramble so much more effectively. This one starts with a double team on Kawhi, leaving the weak side vulnerable, and Kyle Anderson's gonna close that space from the first pass, while McDaniels darts from under the basket to take away a second. All of a sudden that shot is no longer open. No matter what the situation is, there's always someone rotating up to the shooter. This time the Kings run a little 3-man action to get Herter open up top, and look at how quickly Edwards jumps out to contest, moving on a string. On this one you're going to see Pascal ghost a screen, and because Anderson's out in a hedge, that leaves 2 on the ball, nobody on the wing. Gobert immediately recognizes this and gets an extended arm up to at least make his presence felt. When there's always someone to either switch or rotate in front of the ball, it's really difficult to get to the rim. And if an offensive player somehow beats that first line of defense, well, that's where having 2 7-footers comes in handy. What started out as a questionable experiment with the double big units has turned into maybe their biggest asset as a team. Of course, the entire thing is built around an all-time rim protector in Rudy Gobert. The guy's just a massive human being, capable of covering the entire paint seemingly by himself. He's also got incredible awareness and overall IQ. It feels like he's always in the right spot, regardless of what the situation might be. And that combination of size and positioning has turned him into arguably the best drop defender in NBA history. I don't think I need to get into the ins and outs of that. We've seen it for almost a decade now. The way he can cover both the ball handler and roller simultaneously, the way he forces offensive players to live in the mid-range. There's nobody better. Here's the thing though, in Utah, he was stuck in that coverage permanently, because anytime he did step out, the team had no sort of secondary rim protection whatsoever. This is where a second big makes a difference. On the rare occasion he's out of position or switched onto a higher level shooter, someone else can make up for some of that paint presence. That second body allows Gobert to play out in space more. When George comes off a screen, he can jump out in a hedge to take away the pull-up jumper because another 7-footer is rotating from the weak side to pick up the big. No mismatch. Here's another example. He picks up Hero on the ball, which leaves the roll wide open. Sliding down isn't just another capable rim protector, it's a legit 5 who just happens to be playing out of position. Minnesota can throw pretty much anything at ball handlers. Sometimes they've even got Rudy blitzing, and notice how both Reed and Edwards load up to take away the roll. That's just masterful team defense. For years, Rudy was always hesitant to jump out to shooters, knowing that if he left the paint, he was putting his team at serious risk. But now he's comfortable closing out to the perimeter, knowing that not only does he have rim protectors behind him, but big guys who can close possessions on the glass without his help. This also means that, like the wings, when the bigs find themselves defending screening action with each other, they'll take that switch. They ran into that a lot with the Knicks, who put Randle on the ball with Robinson screening, except Gobert's still very effective in space, so that resulted in lots of settling. Because they're comfortable switching with the bigs, that also means they can throw out different looks when it comes to individual matchups. Like against the Nuggets, for example, they threw Cat on Jokic so that Rudy could roam off of Gordon and protect the paint, which really took away a lot of Denver's opportunities. They did this a couple times against the Celtics as well. Naz Reid's the one up in the action, playing an aggressive coverage, knowing that if he gives up the roll, he's got the world's best rim protector behind him. Speaking of Reid, the way he moves at his size shouldn't be legal. Look at the way he goes under the first screen before making himself skinny to sneak over a second and cut off Randle's drive. Then when Randle tries a new angle, he picks his pocket. Everything I've talked about up to this point works together, and you get these possessions that leave you wondering how in the world teams are supposed to score on them. First, you've got McDaniels on Tatum in isolation. When he kicks it out to Porzingis, Rudy closes that space on a hard closeout, appears to get beat off the dribble, but recovers to take away the paint. Or how about this one? It starts with a switch between Jaden and Edwards, then Luka sets up a high pick and roll that draws Gobert out in a hedge, and the result is a turnover. It's hard enough to create a driving lane with all of those point of attack defenders and aggressive help coming from the wings, and if you do find a path to the paint, you're getting met by a guy who's on pace to receive his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award. As a result, teams live in the mid-range when they face the Wolves. Not exactly a great recipe for success. When it comes to an elite defense, they check pretty much every box. Size, speed, versatility, elite rebounding and shot blocking, they defend both the rim and three-point line well, and when Rudy's off the floor, they can field out defensive units that still more than hold their own. The result? An all-time great defense that has led this Minnesota squad to the 2nd best record in the NBA, and has turned them into a serious championship contender. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of the Wolves. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.